Hello guys, welcome back. And today I wanted to look back at the Vegas Golden Knights expansion draft back from a year ago. Of course, them going to the Stanley Cup final. I want to commemorate it and look back on their picks, see which ones obviously worked out, which ones didn't, and overall look back on what they did right. Now, back from a year ago, I thought they had a pretty bad draft. I was looking at guys like taking Spiza, taking guys like Garrison and not even playing them, taking guys that you had never even heard of, picking them, and I'm like, they're wasting this potential. They could have had a much better draft, and I was thinking back then, their draft, I was not impressed with it at all. Back then, I knew they made some good picks, but overall, I was not impressed at all. They made quite a few bad ones, in my opinion, back then, and some that I really had no clue why they did it. Obviously, looking back on it and looking at it now, they made a lot of great decisions, but looking back on it, my feelings back then, I was not impressed with it at all. I did not like what they were doing and the moves they were making after and in the draft, and also between the expansion draft and the season, I was not impressed by how they were starting off. And still, some of these picks were pretty bad. Some of the moves that they made are not really that great, but of course, looking back on it now, they're in the Stanley Cup final, so does it really matter? Not really. But I want to look back on every single pick that the Vegas Golden Knights have done back then, see how they're playing with the team right now, see where they are at in NHL right now, and see how all these picks came to be. So we'll start with the Anaheim Ducks, and they picked Clayton Stoner, but the Anaheim Ducks gave Shea Theodore to the Vegas Golden Knights so they could take Clayton Stoner's contract, and obviously, looking back on it, it's not a great trade there, as Anaheim, I think, would gladly take Shea Theodore right now, as he's doing fantastic with the Golden Knights. Shea Theodore in the regular season this season had 61 games played, 6 goals, and 23 assists for 29 points, almost half a point per game, and the Ducks would obviously take that in the playoffs. So far, he's had 15 games played and 7 points, something that the Ducks were lacking offense with defense, and Shea Theodore, I always thought that was a weird move. Clayton Stoner's contract wasn't that bad, and I thought Shea Theodore was going to be a great player coming up, so I thought that Vegas was going to have a freebie, and Shea Theodore didn't play the first few games with Vegas. I'm pretty sure that he got called up towards not the end of the season, but towards that middle part of the season. Vegas didn't even play him initially, then he started to get playing time, and of course he started to impress them and play very well. Then the Vegas Golden Knights got from the Arizona Coyotes Timo Pulkkinen in the AHL right now. Hasn't really played anything with the Golden Knights. Hasn't played a game with them yet. But in 75 games, he had 29 goals, 36 assists, and 65 points. So not a bad player down in the AHL. He's going to be a pretty good, decent player. He might be a fourth liner for them in the future, but not a bad pick overall. Then to go to Boston, I have one of the best picks in the draft, in my opinion. Colin Miller, Killer Miller. He has been great for the Golden Knights. He's been fantastic. One of their best defensemen, and really a top 4 guy for them. He's played like it. In 82 games with the Vegas Golden Knights this season, he had 10 goals, 31 assists for 41 points. Fantastic. Great numbers there offensively, and defensively, he's great too still. And postseason, 15 games played, 3 points. Hasn't really been too much of a factor there, but still great overall defensively. And obviously, Boston is missing a little bit, and I've seen a lot of Boston fans miss him. So yeah, Vegas Golden Knights made a great pick there. And from Buffalo, Vegas picked William Carrier. He had 37 games played this season, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Not too much of a factor. He was more of a presence guy with physicality and all that, but wasn't too much of a factor with Buffalo. They didn't have too many options to choose from because it was Buffalo, but not a great pick there. From Calgary, they got Derek England, who had 79 games played, 5 goals, 18 assists, 23 points. A career year for him. 23 points, not bad at all. The postseason, he has 15 games played and 0 points, but it's more about his leadership and his defensive game, and that's what he brings. He brings the physicality, he brings the leadership, and you can't really go wrong with that. You can't really judge that pick so long as he was the first guy to touch the Curtis S. Campbell Award for the Vegas Golden Knights and the Western Conference Champions. He was the first guy to touch it, so he might be the guy to touch it if the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup. He might be the first one, so I'm not going to go away from that pick. Of course, he's lived in Vegas for a long time. It's not a bad pick there, looking back on it still. Then from Carolina, Vegas picked Connor Brickley, who I think was a UFA, that ended up signing with Florida. He had 19 points this season for Florida. Not a great player, but he was a decent player, but didn't really end up playing for Vegas. From Chicago, Vegas got Trevor Van Riemsdyk. Of course, he was traded to Carolina for a 2017 second-round pick. And Leshishin, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he was traded for that pick, so we'll see what happens with that guy. But he was traded to Carolina, had a decent season there, but did not play for the Vegas Golden Knights. And from Colorado, they got Calvin Pickard, who was traded to Toronto for Tobias Lindbergh and a 6th-round pick, and that trade isn't looking too great right now, but they traded him to Vegas, or they traded him to Toronto. He didn't play any games in Vegas, so not too much of a factor for them. Now, Columbus, of course, made the biggest mistake in possibly franchise history. They gave William Carlsen a 2017 first, and it wasn't Branson, but it was, I think it was Suzuki or somebody like that, and that ended up being traded away as well. But then they got a 2019 second as well, and David Contract's contract, and of course, William Carlsen had like 6 goals that season, so Columbus just giving that away. He's not going to be a great player or anything. Ends up scoring 40 goals with Vegas, and the rest is really history, and it's not looking too great for Columbus right now. What Vegas got from Dallas, they got Cody Eakin, and I still love that Vegas took Cody Eakin, but he's been playing decent for Vegas, both face-offs, doing the little things for Vegas in the playoffs, which that's all good and dandy. He had 80 games played, 11 goals, 16 assists for 27 points in the playoffs. He had 15 games played, 3 goals, and 1 assist for 4 points. And I still think that having Cody Eakin go to Vegas was a great move for Dallas and a great thing for Vegas to take on. Even though the cap wasn't that great, he still has decent production for them. And from Detroit, another guy that I was speaking earlier that I had no clue was even a thing, Thomas Nosek, who in the regular season played 67 games, had 7 goals, 8 assists for 15 points. Not a bad player. Not a bad player at all in the postseason. He had 1 goal, which was that huge goal. I think it was in Game 5 or something like that. Then had 2 assists and 3 points. So whatever he's doing is doing pretty well, but he hasn't done too much with them, even though he has gotten some clutch goals in the playoffs so far. From Edmonton, yeah, Griffin Reinhart, who is just slaving away in the AHL, pretty much a bust and not doing too much there. From Florida, oh boy, is that a bad one. They gave Jonathan Marchessault so they could trade Riley Smith. So they traded Riley Smith to, I think it was more like a cap dump, and I think Vegas took Marchessault, and then they traded Riley for a 4th-round pick. Obviously, you have 2 guys on Vegas' first line right now from Florida that were basically handed to them on a silver platter. Florida, of course, maybe the biggest mistake in franchise history. Those two guys, who knows what they could have done in Florida for this season, but obviously looking back on it, it is hindsight, but at the same time, wow. From Los Angeles, you got Brayden McNabb, who was a decent guy for them. In the regular season, he had 76 games played, 5 goals, and 10 assists for 15 points. In the postseason so far, he's had 15 games played, 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points. Not a bad player right there, and a decent top 6 guy for them. For Minnesota, he got Eric Kala, and of course, they traded a Vegas' 3rd-round pick for Alex Tuch. Yeah. Minnesota also handing a lot of key pieces for Vegas on a silver platter. We've kind of seen this recurring theme go on. The guy that I took from Montreal, Alexei Emelin, was later traded to Nashville. Again, non-factor for Vegas. From Nashville, you got James Neal, and of course, consensus pick was him. And we all thought, James Neal is going to be the only guy to score goals. Where else is the offense going to come from? And everybody thought it was going to happen, so not a pretty obvious move right there. And he had we all thought he was going to be the leading scorer. We all thought, James Neal is going to be the leading scorer, but who else is going to provide the offense? Those were the days, weren't they? From New Jersey, they got John Merrill, who had 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. A defenseman, but not too much of a factor there for Vegas. He didn't play the greatest this season. We'll see if he bounce back next season. He has decent potential, but he didn't have the greatest year of Vegas. For pretty much, it's pretty rare that a guy came and didn't have the greatest year of Vegas. And from the New York Islanders, it was a weird case. They took John J.F. Berube, who later was, I think he signed with the Chicago Blackhawks in the offseason, so nothing too major there, but Vegas acquired, I think, the 15th overall pick from the New York Islanders to select Grabowski, who, of course, had a massive contract, so the Islanders want to get rid of that. Not too much. We'll see what that 15th pick goes to, but we haven't seen anything right now, as Vegas still has that contract, and the Islanders have that off the books. Vegas took Osburgh Limburg from the New York Rangers. In 63 games played, he had 9 goals, 2 assists for 11 points. Not too much of a factor with Vegas, but still played a decent amount of games for them. And Vegas acquired Marco Fott from the Ottawa Senators. Of course, he was traded later to the Dallas Stars for a 2nd-round pick, and Dylan Ferguson, which played a part in that trade too. So it was kind of a mixture there, but not too much of a factor for Vegas there. Vegas acquired Bellemare from the Philadelphia Flyers this season. He had played a decent role for them. He was a great penalty killer and has been a great penalty killer throughout the whole season. A good defensive forward-flying guy for them, so I'd say pretty impactful. Now, Pittsburgh. They gave a 2nd-round pick so Fleury will be taken. Now, the reason that happened was Pittsburgh was scared that they wanted Fleury's contract off the books. They knew that Matt Murray was the goalie of the future, and he still is, but they wanted Fleury's contract off the books. I think it was 2 years left with $5.9 million or something like that. They wanted that contract out of there, so they paid Vegas that second round pick. I think it was in 2020, something like that, so that Vegas would take him. And obviously, it isn't the greatest move right back then, or looking back on it now, but still, there was a decent reason about it. I mean, there's some great goalies out there that Vegas could have taken, like Korpisalo, Mrazek, and there's other options that Vegas could have went with. So even though it wasn't a great move back, looking back on it, you can definitely see why Pittsburgh did it. Vegas took David Schlemko from the San Jose Sharks, who was later traded to Montreal, played a few games, wasn't the best for Montreal, so another pick where it wasn't that much of a factor for Vegas. And one of the key moves that Vegas made, taking from St. Louis, they took David Braun, who had a great regular season, and in the postseason so far, 11 games played, 7 points. He's having a brilliant season in Vegas, as long as Vegas is doing well. David Braun has been one of the key pieces for Vegas when he's in the lineup. And from Tampa, Steve Yzerman being a Wizard once again, they took Jason Garrison, so they would not take anybody else. But Jason Garrison had a bad contract and isn't even playing with the Vegas Golden Knights right now. He's in the AHL, and he hasn't even played a game with Vegas Golden Knights. I thought coming into the season that Garrison had to be like a top 4 guy for them. Apparently not. They made it work, but Steve Yzerman getting that contract with the Bucks was also very good. They gave the rights for Nikita Gusev, 2017 second, and 2018 fourth. If it was that bad of a contract for Jason Garrison, now they were willing to do that. And because Jason Garrison was off of the Tampa Bay's books, they were able to acquire Ryan McDonough and JT Miller, and they were able to trade away other guys too. So it worked out for both teams. I mean, for both teams, it worked out pretty well, and those picks coming back to Vegas will do pretty decent in the future. Vegas acquired Brendan Leipsic from Toronto. He was later traded away to Vancouver, where he had a pretty good end of the season with them, but wasn't playing all too great with Vegas, but was then traded to Vancouver, where he had a good stint. So for Vegas, it didn't affect things too much. From Vancouver, they got Lucas Pisa, which I don't know if it still is a great pick looking back on it, but he got the assist for the series-winning goal against Winnipeg, and they find a way to make it work, and even if it's not a great pick looking back on it, they'll make it work somehow. From Washington, they made one of the best picks here with Nate Schmidt. He had a fantastic season with Vegas, and definitely one of their guys going in the future. I'd say a top 2 guy for them going in the future. He had a great season. He's pretty much in his prime right now, so it's to be expected, but he's had a great season in the playoffs. He's really impressed me. He's overall been one of the best picks from them. I thought they could have gone with Grubauer there if they wanted another backup goalie, but they definitely made the right choice there with Schmidt. And last but not least, the Vegas Golden Knights took Chris Forborn from the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think that he played a game with them. I think that he went to free agency, something like that. But he didn't end up playing anything with them, and they ended up swimming picks in a 2017 draft. So it was a little bit of a move in there, but the last one, there wasn't too much that affected Vegas right now. Now, of course, some of these, looking back on it, weren't the best moves, but with Vegas in the Stanley Cup Final, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, they've already showed that some of the moves that they made were brilliant, and some of the moves that they made were fantastic. I don't think they can afford to have some bad picks in there, because obviously they're doing very well for themselves. And it's just really weird, like, looking back on it, I thought that they could have done a lot better looking back on it. I thought back then they could have had a much better draft, and I was kind of disappointed by the guys that they were picking. But even if there were some bad picks, it all worked out in the end. But of course, you gotta have hindsight with these things. Obviously, if Florida knew that Riley Smith and Marchessault were gonna be that great as a duo, they would have kept him. And with Columbus, we might think that they're done right now. But did anybody really expect William Carlsen to be a 40-goal scorer? I don't think so. But yeah, remember when we thought that Vegas was going to be the worst team in the league? Good times when we weren't even scared of them. We thought that the first 2 games, oh, that was pretty cute. We'll see what they go after this. Well, they'll continue to decline, and then it never happened. It never happened. So just interesting looking back on the negativity on the expansion draft and the bad picks that we all thought that Vegas was making obviously did not come to pass. And even if they made some bad picks, it obviously hasn't affected them too much as they're the Western Conference champions and have a big shot at the Stanley Cup. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Share with your friends. Tell me down below what you thought of the expansion draft. What do you think about it, looking back on it? And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.